Thank you for joining us here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are proudly broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And speaking of Market Street, in Centerway this weekend on Saturday is India Day. And we're going to talk with representatives from India Day and from the Southern Tier India Cultural Association. That's a little bit later on in the program. I do have some amazing viewer messages that we're going to get to later on. We've got New York State issues, federal issues, presidential issues. As much as we can possibly get to, we are going to try to attempt this morning. I do have bad news for you unless you've recently traveled to Florida. You are not waking up a billionaire this morning with your mega ticket. The winner coming from Florida. So in a single winner, 1.5, last time I checked, 1.55 maybe billion dollars. So unless you were vacationing in Florida, then you still have a chance. But otherwise, if you bought it locally, sorry to be the bearer of bad news. I wanted to mention two quick things before we take a break, and let me put up my contact information so that you can reach out to me. If you have any questions for our guests, also tomorrow, a fan favorite, former Congressman Joe Sempolinski will be our guest. He's also the current Steuben County Republican chair, so there's a lot that you can ask about current events, but also about getting involved locally in political races. So if you have any questions, reach out to me there. And then on Friday, Tommy James, the legendary Tommy James of Tommy James and the Shondells. So that is the next few days. This was startling when I read this, and I've only seen it one place when it seems like it should be a very big story. But it's a little bit different than what we normally cover here. So do you remember when NASA knocked into that asteroid to try to throw it off course? It was kind of a big story, because it was very much like the movie Armageddon, and got a lot of coverage at the time. I'm not going to try to pronounce the asteroid. So by knocking the asteroid, which I think was successful, knocking it off course, it also accidentally released a swarm of boulders. Okay, well, you say that sounds troubling. Well, not only is that troubling, the storm of boulders, quote, are as deadly as Hiroshima, end quote. That's what was accidentally unleashed by NASA during tests to change the trajectory of an asteroid, scientists have found. Now astronomers, I knew I was going to do that. You know exactly what I mean. I'm not going to try it again. Have found that although the impact succeeded in knocking it slightly off course, it has dislodged 37 boulders, which are currently zipping through space at 13,000 miles per hour. You're probably asking, why would I start with that? That's a really good question. It's a startling story that I've seen nowhere else, and I always want viewers of Frankly Speaking to be the most informed. But it is coming from Yahoo News, so we'll try to get you a little more information on that. Okay, locally, again, before we go to break, on a more serious note, not that that's not extremely serious, but on a more serious note, the Weather Service has confirmed a tornado touchdown for 11 miles in Cortland and Tompkins counties. I'm not sure if you've been aware of this. We knew that there was a lot of alerts going on at that time for that area. Well, they have confirmed that tornado touched down in Cortland and Tompkins County on Monday, landing at 5:13 p.m., and it ended up ending at 5:36 p.m., according to the Weather Service. Its maximum width was measured at 200 yards, and that's coming from our friends at the Weather Service as well as Syracuse.com. Okay, when we come back, we're going to get to some viewer messages. I also have a piece here about Governor Hochul, and then a couple things about New York State in general, and then we'll get to the federal issues, tying in with what one of the viewer messages will be focused on. President Trump, former President Trump, giving the speech where I'm sure you've seen it on every news outlet if you've been paying attention, where, well, technically he did not call Chris Christie a fat pig, but someone in the audience did, and the former president decided to highlight it. So we're not going to talk about that much, don't worry. But we will hear from some viewers from very different sides, not of the aisle, but different opinions. And that's what I love about this program. It gives everybody an opportunity, as best as possible, to weigh in on all the issues of the day, whether it's local, national. I've always said, please contact me if there's something even local, very local going on in your area. You say, boy, this park needs to be renovated. Well, I'm going to do my best to reach out. Can't always guarantee to the people responsible. So please, always feel free to contact me. I love to hear from you. And we do receive a lot every day, so please be patient if I haven't responded. But I try to do my best. Okay, let's take our first break. And when we come back, viewer messages and then on to New York State issues. So this is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And coming up in just a few moments, we'll be talking with representatives from the Southern Tier India Cultural Association to tell us about Saturday's India Day celebrations in Centerway Square here in downtown Corning from 4 till 8 p.m. So mark your calendars. Okay, let's go to some viewer messages. And thank you again to everybody who have been reaching out since the early days of this program. I really appreciate it. We'll start with an email that I received in reference to some topics that we discussed, and hopefully we get to more of this with what some are calling the weaponization of the DOJ. But the Democrats are using the DOJ as their private harassment goon squad, scaring off good people that could help this country. Who wants to get in a fight with a government-funded lawyer of the Democrat-controlled government? Thank God for Trump, who is taking on the fight. So that's one perspective on this issue. Tulsi Gabbard saying similar. If you remember, Tulsi Gabbard ran for president as a Democrat, but was clearly highly critical of how the Democrat Party was, its current form, maybe we can call it that. As we've said in the past, it's not your parents' or your grandparents' Democrat Party. So she's saying a similar thing where you have just maybe not how much we as taxpayers, pardon me, are spending with these court cases, but also on the other side, how much a presidential candidate, the leading presidential candidate on the Republican ticket, has to spend to defend himself. So very similar. On the other side, and I'm not going to say the other side of a coin, but a different take perhaps, or maybe a different perspective on this. It starts off, and I'm not just doing this because I swear I'm not just reading good, positive emails about myself. It just happens to be all we get. What can I do about that? But it started by asking if there was a way to expand the program, if maybe, add a little time. We'll see about that in the future, but I'll continue with what I had to say. We need fair and true reporting of issues that are not only political, but also things that have to do with our local area. So far, every interview you have done has been interesting, fair, and just downright entertaining. I expect to see you on a national level at some point. Well, thank you. That's very kind. You make all the fake reporters look so unfair, and they are. I need to thank you for giving a breath of fresh air. Well, I really appreciate that, and that's why I've mentioned numerous times, and I think it's overstated here, but I will take the nice words, okay? But thank you. But that's one of the things that we want to always offer here on Frankly Speaking, is a different perspective that maybe you are seeing at the local, regional, national news level. Still all very important stories, but things that affect you directly, but even a different perspective on the national level of it, through our guests, through maybe my perspective and my short time working at the U.S. House of Representatives, and just our own common sense that we have, in my opinion, in the Southern Tier. Okay, so that's the first part of the message. Okay, that's why I read it. The second part of the message. Before everybody thinks that I'm a never Trumper, not so. I voted for him both times, but I do not like his tactics. That is why the never Trumper were born. Yeah. Can you even imagine how much he would have gotten done had he not made enemies of people like Senator McCain? He went against everything Trump wanted just because of his big mouth. All I am saying is that there are better ways to do things. Do it with actions, not with sarcastic remarks. And there's various perspectives on this. And I thank you. I think that's a very good point. I've heard that echoed from many people through the years that are used to, maybe you could say, the older way of politics. And that's not saying they're a bad way, or that it's updated. It's just that Trump took a completely different tact than if, let's say, back in 2016 it was Hillary and a Ted Cruz, who I like Ted Cruz a lot. But that would have been more of an what we think of as politics. But now that definition has changed, really because of Trump and because of, with Hillary saying deplorables and Obama a little bit during his term. So it's all changed. And many would argue not for the better. So I've heard that echoed from numerous people. And then you have, as I mentioned, and something that the media, well, 6 of one, half dozen another, the media has really run with, is the comments that Trump made about Chris Christie. And again, someone in the audience yelling that Chris Christie is a fat pig. And the former president saying, you can't say that, really highlighting what the guy in the audience said and expanding on it, for really lack of a better word. So really great comments from both viewers. Keep them coming in. Those mostly in reference to what we were talking about yesterday, but actually tie in very well with hopefully what we'll get to talk about today. But when we come back, we're going to be talking with representatives from Southern Tier India Cultural Association. And then after that, we'll get into some more political issues of the day. So please stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program. And today we're talking about India Day 2023. Thank you so much for being on the program. Could you introduce yourselves?
Hey, I'm Jaya and Jayashree Mengalgiri. My last name is Mengalgiri. I'm the president of the Southern Tier India Cultural Association.
Great.
And hi, I'm Sneha. I'm the acting event chair for STICA.
Great. I thought we could start with the history of India Day.
So, I think the first Indian families that moved into the area, they moved in mid 60s.
Okay.
2 families that I'm very familiar with are Suresh and we had Satinderji. So they were the first ones that came in here and for Corning, of course.
Yeah.
And slowly there were more families that were coming in, and they started getting together in people's homes to celebrate India Day or Diwali and all these festivals. Sure. And as time went by, we grew bigger, and they had to find a community space to, celebrate these events. And they started celebrating India in the current format at Centerway Square in 2005.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it's 18 years, right? So we are very ready to celebrate this 18th year of India's Independence Day here.
Right.
Celebrating it here.
And that's Saturday, August 12th, right here in Centerway Square, 4 p.m. till 8 p.m. How has it changed through the years? When it moved down to Centerway?
So I moved to the area in around 2008.
Okay.
So the format that I moved into is very close to what we have now. So we have entertainment program. We used to start at 11 o'clock with both countries' flags raised by the mayor and other guests of honors from the area. Sure. And then followed by an entertainment program. And then a lot of people, I guess, came there for the food.
Okay. It's always about the food.
So we catered food from restaurants around the area. Okay. They bring in food and then help us serve it. That's the biggest attraction of the area. And we have that this year too. Mm-hmm. But I think I'll let Sneha here relate more about how it's different under her chair, I want to say.
Well, how is it different?
Yeah, so I think I'm new to the area, so this would be my first India Day event. So I am equally excited about organizing this and attending it. Mm-hmm. So I think I've put both those things in mind while we were all planning this event. So this year, as usual, we have entertainment lined up, a bunch of dance performances, some not to be told things for people to come and see there. And then in terms of food, which is the main attraction, usually we had we used to serve food. And this time we thought we'll just open up and have a lot of variety. So we are going to have live food stalls. So each food stall would be themed on a different Indian cuisine. So people can pick and choose what they want to try. And I think that gives them more opportunity to understand the Indian cuisine, besides the few that they are aware globally. So we are excited about that because that would be our first time doing this. So I hope people come and enjoy the food we serve this time.
Do you find that people stay the whole time from 4 to 8? because there's so much to do?
It's just like any other event on Market Street. Like people, the pedestrian, they just
Come and
walk
go.
in.
Sure.
We do ticket sales ahead of time. And if people are looking to buy tickets,
Yes.
it's on stika.org.
Okay.
So they can go in there and look for India Day and they can buy tickets there. However, Corning is a big supporter. They buy tickets in advance.
Okay.
Businesses in Corning, within Corning, buy, Corning Incorporated buy tickets and, give it to their employees. And, that's a big group. And that's basically the tourists. It's summer, right?
Yeah.
So they're
Perfect.
tourists and they just swing by. They just stop by, and I think they just stop by for some events, but then they definitely get the food.
Of course. It always goes back to the food. What is this year's theme?
Our guest of honors will be talking about diversity and inclusion.
Okay.
That's the theme for this year. We call that our theme because we having, of course, the mayor will be here. Like
Yes.
all these years has been here. Great support from the city for us. But we also have guest of honors. One from the school district, the superintendent Michelle Caulfield will be there, and Millicent Ruffin from Corning Incorporated will be there also, and they will be talking about what programs they are using to encourage diversity and inclusion.
Sure. Now, you said this is your first India Day. Are you nervous about it?
Not really.
No.
It just feels like one big happy family. Instead of somebody's home, we are just doing it at Centerway Square. So yeah, not nervous at all.
Do you think you'll have time to enjoy it, or are you going to be working the whole time?
So we'll see about that. So I actually was asking Jaya in the beginning when we were planning the events, like, hey, I want to do this dance with the other people. Should I, can I skip? And she's like, yeah, go ahead. And so I think everybody's supportive, the entire board, everybody just picks up work that somebody else is leaving to do something else. So I think that ways it's like a big happy community helping each other out.
Of course.
And yeah, I'm excited for the food as well.
I'm excited to bring her on board. She has support from another colleague, Shiva, and she's not here today. But yeah, she's getting some support from her, and we also have like she said, the board is entirely on board.
Oh, that's great.
literally.
How much planning goes into this? When do you start the process?
So I think when I started being part of the board, the major layout, dates and venues were already sorted. So I think about at least a year.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
a year
our
before
planning
that.
starts the day
The
of India Day.
Oh,
But
really?
because
Over, yeah.
we-
So no break.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we start by telling Nate, our colleague here in Gaffer District, that this is the time we want our space reserved for it. And then that's the first thing we do, of course. But then after, in January, we start talking to our vendors, food vendors, our furniture, tent rentals. So that all starts way ahead.
Sure.
Way ahead, and then we invite our community to start, sending us about in April,
Yeah.
sending us participation and things like that.
What has the reaction been through the years? Do you see it continue to grow from year to year? Well, you wouldn't know.
So the biggest crowd we had, we count that by the number of food plates we
Oh,
served,
okay.
right?
Oh, okay.
So 750. This was
Wow.
in I think early 2010, 2011, somewhere.
Sure.
I think we after pandemic. So pandemic, we didn't do it for a couple of years,
Of course.
and then we lost our crowd. And
interesting.
then now we are slowly picking it back up.
Okay.
Last year I think we had about close to 400.
Okay.
And this year we are definitely expecting more.
Wow.
Because the first week of ticket sales we were already 250, and that's growing.
How many volunteers does it take?
So we have the board, which is about 20-25 people, the extended board, and then we have volunteers who sign up. We send out volunteering sign up, and a lot of these people are just like parents and other colleagues who want to support during the event, so they come and volunteer for various tasks that we have. So they'll help with food, entertainment support, but about overall the board plus the volunteer, about 50 odd people who make this happen. We meet once a week for our board meetings. It goes through a strict plan. Everybody has to answer their T's and dot their I's and tell. So it is a full-fledged, like a professional organization.
Sure.
And it takes a lot of hands to get something like this done, especially when it's like in an open space.
Yeah.
You can't really keep anything hush-hush. Everything is out there in the open for people to see.
Of
So
course.
it has to be well organized as well.
And you mentioned, we were talking off the air, but it takes a lot of sponsors too.
Yes. So we have some steady sponsors, regular sponsors who support the event every year. And then we also reach out to other businesses here in Market Street and anybody who's willing to sponsor the event. So we have about 10 to 12 sponsors, and you can see their names on a site. We would also have their logos and everything up during the event. And yeah, big thanks to the sponsors who make this all happen.
Yeah, we have been sponsored by Alsworth Financials and Socha, and we also Metadine. They have been our regular sponsors.
Okay.
At this time, they are at a platinum level, which is $1,000 sponsors, both Socha and Alsworth.
Okay.
And then we have other gold and silver and bronze sponsors.
So go to the website.
Yeah, so go to the website.
Yeah, get to the website. But our biggest sponsors this year is Arts Council.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, they gave us grants.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
We're talking India Day 2023, and that is Saturday, August 12th from 4 to 8 p.m. at Centerway Square in downtown Corning. Before we go, before I wrap up the interview here, how can people get involved with the Southern Tier India Culture Association, and also how can they help plan this event maybe in the future or help you with this event?
So we send out participation forms. Right now it's like a word of mouth, which is outside the Indian community, because it's a little difficult to explain on the theme because it has to be centered towards India Day and stuff like that. But if anybody's interested to participate, we could put them in touch with our entertainment chair Nitya, and like she can get them on board and like help them understand how they can be part of the event itself. It could be dancing, music, playing instruments, even like emceeing the event or stuff like that. So probably on the site we have a link where the participation forms are up. So if anybody's interested, they can just send in their nominations and we can get in touch. Even for volunteering, it's all there on the site.
Okay.
We have been promoting on our social media platforms as well, like Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, we have participants this time for our fashion show, which is our a lot of people. That's our standard one, like we have it every year.
Yeah.
So we have a fashion show and we have participants, local participants, and we have a MC.
Oh, okay.
That people I know will look forward to.
Oh, that's fun. That's a lot of fun. Where can people find, and maybe it's not on the website because you said there's some secret things, but is there a schedule of performances online?
Yeah, so we didn't really want to like put it up out there. We
Sure.
wanted people to like just
Experience.
experience the whole event, because that's how it's done in India.
Sure.
Like we have a bunch of lineup. It's a mix of like sometimes it's a dance that you would expect next. Sometimes it's like another music. So we just didn't want to put the lineup, but it includes everything you would expect to think of when you hear the word India Day. So there's a lot of dancing, music, speeches, fun, and things.
Oh, we have an open dance floor. Don't
dance
forget
floor.
that.
Oh,
Yeah,
open
we
dance
have an
floor.
open dance floor, and that's a big hit every year too.
Oh,
A lot
sure.
of kids,
So-
parents bring their kids to participate
What would-
in the open dance floor.
Just before we go, what would you say to someone that's never experienced India Day and try to, I guess, maybe convince them to come out on August 12th?
I would say if you have heard Indian food and what it is all about, the curry, it's going to be there. But you'll have great interactions when you're there. Just speak up, talk to people. I think from my experience, the impression is Indian people are here to work, but come see us in our elements and strike a conversation, ask a question, what do you want to know? And also last year, actually, we got feedback for our India Day that they wanted to know not just the cultural part and the food part, they wanted to know more about India. So we took that feedback, and this year kids have put together posters.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Informative posters, and that will be on display too. So
wow.
there's a lot to take back from this year's India Day.
It sounds like from 4 to 8 p.m. Saturday, August 12th at Centerway Square. Thank you so much for being on the program this morning. Best of luck. I hope you get the time to enjoy it. And
Thank you.
relax a
Thank
little
you.
bit.
I hope to
having
see you
us.
there too.
Of course, of course. All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Thank you for joining us here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you to our guests. That was a lot of fun. India Day this Saturday, 4 to 8 p.m. at Centerway Square, downtown Corning. On tomorrow's broadcast during the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program, we'll be talking with, as I mentioned earlier, fan favorite. Everybody always ends up telling me how much they enjoy when he's on the program, former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. So he'll be joining us right around the same time. We normally spend almost the whole hour together because being a former congressman, he can weigh in on the issues of the day, of course, kind of behind the scenes, but also as the chairman of the Steuben County Republican Party, he can also weigh in on local elections and also tell us all how we can get better involved in our community. So that is on tomorrow's program. And then Friday, that's when we talk with Tommy James of Tommy James and the Shondells. So if you have any questions for either of those guests, there is the best way to contact me. Let's get to some New York State issues before we have to take a break. Then we'll get to the federal level. And again, weigh in at any time. There is the information up on your screen. So I want you to think about this from a political standpoint for just a moment. Here is the headline. New York governor recalibrates on crime with control of the House at stake. Now, we've talked about, bail reform. We've talked about people fearing for their safety in New York State. One of the many reasons that so many people are leaving in droves, whether it's the economy, the high taxes, the business climate. But then you tie in, if you're already, fighting those things, already willing to put up with those things, then now you have this surge in crime because of horrible, disastrous decisions made out of Albany. Pardon me. So we know the governor made a minuscule change on bail reform that many have said will do absolutely nothing. It's not really any type of elaborate change. But why did she do that? Because it's a smart political move, or a smart, political works too, but a public relations move. Because then she can go out and say, I'm really tough on crime. Now, why is she doing all that when they aren't tough on crime? Because, it's every law. We talked about it with Senator Tom O'Mara last week. We talked about it 2 weeks ago now. We talked about it with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Many, especially on the far left in Albany, don't care how this is affecting you. They don't care about the actual public safety. It's because of their agenda is what they actually care about so much. And kind of doing this virtue signaling, for lack of a better term. But some people in Albany realize this is a very bad political move. Clean Slate Act, bail reform. I forgot 2 or 3 of them within the last 6 months of what they're what's the word I want to use? Forcing upon us, and again, coddling the criminals and tying the hands of law enforcement. So the reason I've kept this up on the screen for so long is because think about the fact that poll after poll shows that public safety is, if not number one, pretty close to number one on the mind for New York State residents. You see how successful Lee Zeldin was in his race for governor because he ran on public safety. Because he realized how many people were concerned for them and their families and their neighbors and their friends. So Governor Hochul doesn't look at this as, wow, there's a lot of people getting hurt. There's a lot of new victims that didn't need to be victims because of bail reform. People have a real reason to fear for their safety, especially, and it's hitting us in rural areas, trust me. We've talked about it a lot on the programs, whether it's when the sheriffs come on, whatever the case may be. But when you read, and I go to the New York Post a lot, but what's happening in New York City, it's like the wild, wild west. But it's not about, and this is what I'm talking about with politics, it's not about the actual residents' public safety, which should be number one when it comes to priorities from the government. What it is about is elections. Look at that. New York governor recalibrates on crime, not because you fear for your public safety, not because there is a public safety issue and crime rampant on the streets. No, because they want control of the House. So they have to have that political message. That shows you a mindset of politicians. Again, not about the public's safety. It's about who are they going to vote for if we can dupe them with public relations strategies to suggest that we are tough on crime. To me, this was kind of the article that gets your blood boiling and shows you what many in politics really think about you. It really is about duping you into believing that they are fighting hard for public safety when we see, again, time after time, the exact opposite. And ask any of the sheriffs that we had on this program, they told us it's about coddling criminals and tying the hands of law enforcement. We've got to take a short break, play a little catch up here, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm going to have to take a break here in just a little bit because we are running late because we had such a fun time talking with the Southern Tier India Cultural Association about their India Day this Saturday in Centerway Square from 4 to 8. But I just cannot drop this point that, again, it's not about your safety or my safety or your neighbor's safety. That's not what the number one concern is of Governor Hochul and statewide Democrats. It's that it hurt them in the midterms, and they really want to win back the House, and that's why we see another redistricting challenge here in New York. So it is not about you. It is 100% about politics. Governor Hochul is toughening her public safety platform to help Democrats retake control of the House. A strategic, I'm circling that word, a strategic reset after Republicans won a series of upsets in the state's congressional races by seizing on concerns over crime. So just strategic. It's, again, not about public safety whatsoever when that is one of the main reasons people are leaving this state, because they're concerned for their and their family's safety. And what does it all boil down to? Politics. Hey, just before we go to break, I had mentioned this at the top of the program because we received that nice email from a viewer talking about the attack, some calling it the weaponization of DOJ against former President Trump. And they echoed a point that Tulsi Gabbard made. And I touched on that, but I wanted to give you the full quote because I don't like to just paraphrase if I don't have to, and I have it right in front of me. Tulsi Gabbard, she's an independent from Hawaii. She ran for president as Democrat back last go-round, but she realized that the Democrat Party had changed so much, and she saw the attacks on her from the media that she never had before, because Democrats always have it good with the media, but not in that situation, because she was critical of the party. So she tweeted out, "Newest Trump indictment is Biden administration's latest tyrannical tactic to distract and drain resources from his main political adversary." Very similar to what the person who emailed in said. So now anyone who criticizes how government runs an election is a criminal. Democrat elite are destroying our democracy and country. Now remember, she used to be a Democrat, but she saw the writing on the wall with these types of pushes farther and farther to left. But I thought that was a really good point. So does this now say, I think we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So now anyone who criticizes how the government runs an election is a criminal. I know there's been a lot of pushback and concern over the new voting machines. Those type of are we not allowed to ask the questions? And doesn't that make people more paranoid when you're not allowed to speak on an election issue, a political issue? She said, as we all see, all these indictments, count after count after count, being thrown at former President Trump is clearly an effort to divert his focus away from the campaign and towards fighting on multiple fronts in these lawsuits, and to completely drain him and his campaign of resources so that they can't focus on actually campaigning and trying to win the election. And the former president admitted that during his rally, was it yesterday, that the trials would hamstring, is a term I believe he used, or at least a headline, his campaign. And that was clear. Whereas, she continued, the founding fathers of the United States envisioned that our country would be a country of laws, not of men. What we're seeing here, most concerning as it relates to the First Amendment. But you take all of these different attacks and indictments in whole, what we are seeing is a politicalized Department of Justice that has disqualified itself, from being able to fulfill the awesome responsibility that they're entrusted with, because they're using it, first of all, to go after the political opponents, namely Donald Trump and his supporters, and also using the Department of Justice to protect the Democrat elite namely President Joe Biden and by extension Hunter Biden. So that's Tulsi Gabbard. I just want to mention that quick because it echoed and then expanded on what a viewer had said. So as always, you can contact me. We tried to do the best we can to discuss it. All right, we got to take another short break, and then we'll be back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. We have another quick story, and we're just wrapping up on a couple breaks and kind of doing our quick segments here towards the end. And I think this would be really interesting to get your opinion on because, you know, from the beginning, whether you supported Trump, whether you didn't, the constant barrage of many times manufactured scandals by the media. I remember when it first hit me, I don't know if it's when it first hit me, but when they made it, it was essentially a scandal that Melania wore heels on Air Force One on their way to a national disaster. Now, the issue wasn't what she was ultimately wearing when they were on the ground at that natural disaster, because that was, of course, work boots, but it's the fact that, well, I don't want to go back into this and I don't know. It was critical because she was wearing that and they thought it was disrespectful in a way, or they thought, well, she doesn't even know what kind of shoes to wear. And so then when she gets there and she is wearing boots, they kind of drop it. But that's when I started noticing it was going to be scandal after scandal after scandal. And I think it's had a different impact than they thought it would. Very often it helps the former president, especially with these court cases. It helps him. So it seems to backfire on him, or on them every time they go after him. And there's a study by Axios. And so, again, take that with a grain of salt, left-leaning. Numb to Trump. Data shows that the drop in scandal interest each time this happens, each time there's a new quote-unquote scandal. And it's obviously, as anyone knows, it's the boy that cried wolf. That eventually people, even if they dislike Trump, I remember I have a friend that really dislikes Trump. And they said, when they heard of another indictment, they said, what's going to happen? What, I mean, is it? So they're not even getting the results they want. So it's very fascinating to me that people are, and I'm not going to go through all the numbers, you can find it at Axios, but people aren't paying as much attention on social media. They're not Google searching it as they once were. Well, that's what happens when it's always the end of the world, no matter what that scandal is. And it happens, I mean, I saw it too, to a lesser extent, obviously, but with former President Barack Obama, where we called it at the time the fog of scandal, because there were actual things, NSA, so many things we could point to that should have been scandals. The media, of course, wouldn't cover on it, but it almost became confusing to people to keep track. So I think that's where a point where people throw up their hands and say, that's enough. I've got better things to pay attention to than an Adam Schiff coming out and saying, you know, the sky is falling, essentially. So let's take another short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We're going to have to take another short break here in just a second, but this ties in with what we were just discussing with kind of the numbness to all the scandals that they've thrown at the former president throughout the years. Studyfinds.org says, do scandals matter anymore? Study finds that major controversies barely impact today's politicians. One of the reasons that they cite is kind of the divided nature of the media. And they don't come out and say it because it wouldn't fit the narrative. What they're going to try to say is, you know, you go to one place and you're in your bubble and you end up siding with your person, whoever that may be. I think more or less it's because we have a media very often that doesn't cover the scandal. Well, let's face it. Look at Woodward Bernstein and going after Nixon. You know, that, of course, many journalist majors look up to that, having the opportunity to bring down a sitting Republican president. But they don't, you're not going to see, an MSNBC, you name it, basically any of the major news networks cover a Hunter Biden the way they should. I mean, essentially it was being censored. Jake Tapper at the time saying, well, this looks like a conspiracy theory, and then you had the people that, and this is always something they're good at using, well, it looks like Russian interference. Russia had a hand in this, so we don't ever have to talk about it again. Or, well, they had a hearing on it in Congress, so we never have to talk about it again. So it's not so much it's the divided news media, it's that the media has now found ways to either beat it to death, going back to the Trump issue, making people numb, or ignore it and hope that it goes away. It just depends on who they're trying to bring down, and the goal is, because they were taught in journalism school, because of Woodward Bernstein, is to ultimately bring down a sitting Republican president. That's the highest badge of honor in many of the news media circles. Let's take our last break. Then we're going to wrap things up here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Oh, wrong button. There we go. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We only have a few short minutes left, and thank you to everybody who joined us. We'll get to our goodbyes here in just a little bit. But remember when rhetoric was thrown around a lot that, oh my goodness, the Tea Party and their rhetoric, or Donald Trump and his rhetoric. On MSNBC, Jason Johnson said the GOP has turned into a terrorist religious cult. And the name of that cult? MAGA. Republicans show again, because they're not a party, they are a dime store front for a terrorist organization at this point called MAGA. You basically see that the Republicans over and over and over again snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. That's coming on again, Jason Johnson, but on MSNBC. The rhetoric, it's just designed to divide us even more, right? They have so much to benefit from dividing us as a country, and it's sad. Continues to happen at the state level and obviously at the federal level, and the media plays an important hand in that. Hey, by the way, President Biden is pushing for federal employees to return to the office. Yes, your bureaucrats hard at work that you're paying for have not returned to the office, even though COVID has been officially declared over by the president. Apparently your bureaucrats said, I still don't feel like going into the office. I'll audit you from home, from the comfort of my living room, or whatever bureaucratic agency you want to point to. Well, Biden, obviously going back to what we were saying about Hochul, everything being political, he wants them back sooner than later because he wants things to at least appear to run more smoothly, or take away that talking point as it nears election. So he can say, no, look how much we've increased productivity. You can read the writing on the wall. It's perfect. It's all because we're coming up on election season, and boy, think of how you could hit on him for them still being out of the office. We are out of time. Thank you to our guests from the Southern Tier India Cultural Association. Don't forget, India Day will be this Saturday, 4 to 8 p.m. at Centerway Square in downtown Corning. And on tomorrow's program, former Congressman Joe Sempolinski, so you'll definitely want to tune in for that. And that does it for us today. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning starting at 7 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, right here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I look forward to it already.